The 5 steps of planning in the business world are to define your objectives first and foremost. Step 2 is to determine your current status relative to those objectives. Step 3 is to then develop premises regarding future conditions and to generate alternative scenarios for what may happen. Step 4 is to then analyze those alternatives and to develop and begin to implement a plan. Step 5 is then to fully implement the plan and evaluate the results of the plan.
So to apply the 5 steps of planning to a personal experience, for a few years I had the goal of purchasing a used car so that I could use it going to school out of state, just to drive around, maybe get a job off campus. But anyways, my current status was that I had no car or any method of transportation in Arizona. I really just relied on other people to give me rides or to use Uber or Lyft services. So then I kind of thought about what future conditions could occur as I'm trying to purchase a car. So a couple of these conditions are car prices rising, if my parents are able to come out and help me research and pick out a suitable car in Arizona or not, if the loan I applied for is approved or if it's rejected, if there are high interest rates, if the car I end up picking has any kinds of issues, if I need to buy a car in Arizona or maybe my state of residence, Missouri. So there were a whole lot of different conditions that could have occurred that I kind of thought about ahead of time. So my plan was to originally purchase a car in Arizona, as prices for the car that I wanted were significantly lower than the ones in Missouri. And the state taxes here is significantly lower as well. So what happened for the plan is that my dad came out to Arizona to help me look for the Nissan that I wanted at several different dealerships. However, as we were looking for the car here, this was exactly when the coronavirus pandemic was breaking out and GCU was sending all the students home. So my dad and I made the decision to fly back to our home state, and we didn't make any purchases. So the plan then changed to the alternative of buying a car in Missouri, which led to some of the other conditions happening, like the high taxes and having to do a really long drive back to Arizona. So although the original plan didn't really go through, I was still able to purchase a used car in Missouri and was able to take care of all the expenses for it and safely drive it back to Arizona for the fall.
Inclusion is a very important concept in today's modern workplace. It's the only way to make sure that everyone's voice in a workplace is truly heard. It also leads to more effective decisions and teams because you have input from everyone in the organization. It is especially important in a multicultural organization. Inclusion helps to bring different types of people together, and it fosters a healthier form of workplace diversity. It also creates interpersonal relationships between people who may normally not get together. Low context and high context are the 2 different ways that we tend to look at cultures and how they relate within themselves to authority. Some low context cultures include Germany, Sweden, Norway, and other Scandinavian countries, and some high context cultures include Japan, China, and Egypt. It's important that managers are aware of these differences because different cultures respond differently to different forms of management. Low context cultures find identity in their individual achievements and are very goal-oriented and independent when completing their tasks. High context cultures, on the other hand, tend to focus more on the group and the relationships within them in order to complete their assigned tasks.
Proxemics is basically just how people use interpersonal space to communicate. So whenever we look at the United States, we tend to have a lot of abundant space and we tend to take this extra space for granted. So for example, I know a lot of people tend to have that extra room in their home that's just kind of unused. They are really off limits sometimes. And then whenever we look at Japan, they use their space pretty effectively and they live very close in proximity. So Tokyo is pretty vertical. People live kind of on top of each other in the condos, and they're just much closer in proximity on the streets, at work, at home. But now, due to coronavirus, both of these countries are recommended to stay, approximately 6 feet apart just to keep social distancing. So this is implemented in schools, offices, grocery stores, gyms, several other locations just to avoid the spread. When comparing Japan and the United States with Hofstede's 5 value differences, we find that Japan and the United States are similar in tolerance for power distance. We don't really tolerate an unequal distribution of power. We want to be viewed as equals. The USA tends to be more tolerative of taking more risk, but Japan is more conservative. We are highly individualistic. Japan used to be pretty collectivistic, but because of westernization, they moved more towards individualism. Japan is a masculine-dominated culture, whereas the United States falls a little bit more towards masculine than feminine. The USA values much short-term thinking, more instant gratification, whereas Japan is more deliberate, methodical, and very long-range in their thought. To me personally, I found it surprising that Japan isn't very risk-taking, since I associate them as a strong car developer, which I feel like takes a lot of risks. The United States results make a lot of sense though. You're both different countries and just thrive in different ways.